Hello snowboarders of the internet, I'm your host Avran LeFeber, and in this video we'll be reviewing Ride's new A10. That's right, Ride's bindings got an overhaul this year and we're gonna dive into them. I rode these bindings at Copper Mountain on a gray bird day with high visibility, warmer temps, some wind, a little bit of snow on top of fresh corduroy, and I rode it with my K2 Cool Bean and my K2 Thraxis boots. Alright, so let's talk about adjustability with this binding. You got your standard flip cams on the toe and the heel strap for lengthening or shortening the placement of it. The straps for the heel sit on a little slide track, so when you loosen them up you can slide it forward or backwards just to get it more centered in there. The heel cup is fully adjustable, so you can move it in or out depending on the size of your boot. You got two placements for the high back if you need to rotate it or not. You got your standard forward lean that does use a screw, so it is fully set in its place. And then you have the toe ramp, which you can slide back or forth on the chassis. It's not a lot to slide back or forth, but there is a little bit more room just to help center it under the boot. Alright, so with the heel strap, it's a two-piece construction, so you got this softer foam back in there, and it's still not as soft as other ones. Then you got this white piece right here that's this harder exoskeleton. This is one of those straps that's very minimal, so that way you don't have all this padding that can stretch and just ruin the flex. It just keeps a more consistent, even flex in there. When you do open this up, the strap does tend to flop out of the way. It's just the way that it actually has this contour right here on there. So you got that going on for you. Now with the toe strap, it doesn't have as big of a cutout as others on the market, so it's going to be kind of limited on how it fits over the toe on certain boot shapes. With my boot, it fit fine, but I could see other ones just because the way it is, it's not going to fully grip. It might slip a little bit, or you're going to have to adjust it. The big thing is when you look at it, it actually reminds me of an old school toe strap that you would be rocking over the top instead of over the toe. Take that into consideration as well. Otherwise, I like the fact that it's rubber. It does grip well. It did stay locked on my boot. The straps did their job. You didn't really have to worry about them, play around with them too much. They just felt very secure and you could drive into them. So when it came to the ratchets, they climbed well. They did their job. They stayed locked in. They will have to break in. I mean, I only used these for one day. They were a little sticky right out the box. They were still sticky at the end of the day. It's one of those things that you notice when you go to release it, that it takes a little bit more effort. And they do climb, as I said, well, but you can see right now that when I'm putting them on, they stick a little bit. That's not a bad thing. I mean, I'd rather have a ratchet that's a little sticky than something that's super loose and might prematurely release on me. The high backs are very stiff. You notice that carbon in there. You can see that it doesn't really flex too much. And the forward lean is a locked position. You cannot adjust this on the fly. So once you have it set, it's set for the day unless you got a screwdriver on you. Otherwise, they do their job. They're lightweight. You can put a lot of power back into them and feel that carbon just spring back out of it. For some people, this might be too much of a high back. For me, it wouldn't be an everyday type of thing for me, but it did do a great job. It did contour to the back spine of my boot well. I didn't feel like there was just excess material or that it was slopping around in there or anything like that. This is a very rigid binding. I mean, you can expect that with a top of the line aluminum binding. It's just not gonna have as much flex as a composite in there. With that said, there's still a little lateral roll to this binding just due to the actual shaping of the tray and the way they do it. It didn't quite feel like just an old school aluminum binding. They actually felt a little more solid in there, but it is a stiff free ride charging binding. It's a binding you can put your whole weight into and you're gonna get optimal performance out of. While the footbed in this binding does do a great job of dampening, you still will feel a little bit more chatter compared to their composite counterparts. That's just the way it is. It's a more lively, reactive binding. That's just how aluminum feels underfoot. It's not gonna be for everyone. If you're someone that suffers from foot fatigue or micro vibrations, really agitate your arch and stuff, you may wanna look at the composite version of this. Otherwise, I will say that this footbed does do a damn good job of dissipating a lot of chatter, but you still do feel a little bit more than you would say with a composite. So who's this binding for? It's for the high-end, hard-charging free ride guy. So here's the pros and cons of this thing from my personal experience. I'm not a fan of aluminum bindings. I never will be. There's just a level of chatter and micro vibrations that you feel underfoot. Now this binding does a great job of dissipating a lot of that, but it's still a little too rigid underfoot for my personal taste. What I do like is that the aluminum frame on this is actually narrower. It does have a little binding roll in there, so that lateral play. Plus you have a disc that's not very big. I mean, it's not a full-blown mini disc. It's kind of like a schmedium disc, if you will, but it's plastic, so it does allow for a little more feel under there. I'm not a fan of canting. These do have canting. I feel it in my knees at the end of the day because I cant my footbeds inside my snowboard boots. But if you want canting, these are solid. Now, overall, this is a very powerful binding with a lot of precision and a lot of reaction out of it. And it's solid for what it is. Like when you drive into it, it just takes all that energy and puts it towards the edge of the board or into the load of the camber profile. It really does not allow for a loss of power transmission in there so that you can just keep on ripping as hard as you want. Is that going to be for everyone? I don't believe so, but for those of you that really want that, this is a good binding option. Agree? Do you disagree? Do you own a pair? Are you going to buy a pair? Leave me a comment down below. Let's have a conversation about this binding. If you're new here, remember to subscribe, click the bell, get those notifications. That way you're not missing any of the videos we got coming out for all you snowboarders of the internet. And if you really like what we're doing over here and you want to see us just grow out further, swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. As always, I've been your host, Avran LeFeber, and I'll see you in another video.